there. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors and journalists, people who write stuff so you can find out inside what they're thinking about as you go about your business and reading the news and understanding what's going on in the Bronx and the city. And in our second segment, we usually do some arts or performers, and we have a poet. Somebody who has put out a book of poetry, and we're going to take care of that in our second segment. In our first segment, we're going to say good evening to the senior reporter at The City, Yoav Gonen. Nice to see you again, and welcome to the Bronx Buzz.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you.
You've written a bunch of interesting things. Let's just start. I don't want to laugh about it, but the city has had a problem putting public toilets in place, and apparently now we're finally going to get that done. Can we talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, and I guess the question is when it'll get done. But they were talking since at least late 2019 about a way to get the cost for building park restrooms down. We did a story earlier in the year that highlighted the issue, including a bathroom in Ferry Point Park in the Bronx that was costing close to $5 million.
That is so crazy. Excuse me. That is so crazy. I mean, when I was looking at the costs of these new portable toilets, it's still a lot of money. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I couldn't help but react.
Of course. Yeah, when you see those numbers, you know that the city has to try different things. I don't know if it was the COVID pandemic that delayed things or not, but they are just getting around now to launching a pilot. It won't start until next summer, but they're going to get these prefabricated steel bathrooms that are called the Portland Loo, and they're going to put one in each borough. And the units themselves cost under $200,000, but still apparently connecting them to water and electricity is
a big thing,
very expensive here. So it's going to cost more than $5 million total.
It is a lot of money, but I have to say, one in each borough, you're not solving a lot of problems that way. How many of us have been in the old cement block bathrooms in our parks? I guess this would be an improvement. So when you said next summer, are we talking summer of 23 or 24?
2024.
Wow.
So even with the plan kind of almost a lock, it's still not going to happen.
You got to have a sense of humor. I don't know what else to tell you. We can't. And what I was thinking of when I read your article, or when I was thinking of, if we can't do this, how are we building, a new Penn Station, or I don't know, all the other things that are out there?
Right.
Anyway, let's talk about the city workforce, which is. It's an interesting thing. The mayor ended the vaccine mandate, but now you're backtracking. So people who are saying, "Well, wait a minute. Why did I have to lose my job? Do I have to reapply for a job?" And the city apparently is down maybe 23,000 workers. What's going to happen now, and how can they actually restock the city workforce so that the city runs even more efficiently?
Yeah, they did basically say if you were fired over this policy that's no longer a policy, all you can do is reapply, just like everybody else. And I know there's going to be some lawsuits and court battles over that because people lost out on, even if they get rehired, they will have lost out on about a year's pay and
a year or more. It could be more.
And the mayor has basically said that the problem is that the city is too reactive when it comes to hiring. They just wait for people to come to the city. He's talking about a new proactive way to get people hired, and he's also talking about holding the civil service exams much more often than they do now, because those lists sit around for multiple years before anybody's called about open vacancies. So they are talking about ways to tackle that problem.
Do you have a sense, when you think about 23,000 workers, you'd have to think that something is not getting done as a result. Is it out there? Is there a sense of what agencies are hurting or are like, well, I mean, I don't know, housing is well behind or inspections are well behind. In other words, what is the cost to the city? Because, of course, not to say that we don't want to hire more workers, but if we don't need them to run the city, I mean, you save a couple of dollars. I mean, I don't want to be like that, but let's be realistic. Do you have a sense of what's not getting done as a result, or does anybody know?
There have been some stories out there about the building of affordable housing. That's a process that is much delayed. That the HPD, the agency that deals with that, is very short staffed and also has lost a lot of expertise. And also the Human Resources Administration, which manages social services and benefits, apparently that process is much delayed as well. So there is a human cost here as far as services.
That's interesting. And is there a rollout plan from a time perspective so that we could get a sense of, well, by 2024 or mid 2024, we'll have stocked, or now it's really just trying to start from scratch and bring them all in?
Yeah, I would have to look. They do kind of have to make estimates about the workforce in the budget. I haven't seen the latest numbers on that, but Adams has been a proponent of doing more with less as far as the workforce. A lot of people criticize the De Blasio administration for hiring too many people. They
Right.
bloated the city government to about 330,000 workers. I think in some ways Adams is trying to right size that. The question is some people might feel he could be going a little bit too far in trimming the workforce.
Let's move to education before we run out of time. You wrote a piece, hundreds of New York City elementary schools used a teacher's college reading curriculum. And Chancellor Banks, by the way, people know that he has a long history here in the Bronx, said it hasn't worked. What are the issues there? And one would wonder, what measuring stick we determine if it works or not. I mean, that we'd be here for another 10 hours trying to
That's right.
sort out in the city's curriculum. But let's just talk about what the curriculum is, what it was, and what the chancellor views for the future.
Sure. The main criticism, there's a few. The main criticism is that it tends to work best with students who come in with a certain kind of level of literacy already. That means they're getting read to a lot at home. They're engaging in a lot of conversations with their parents before they show up at school for the first time. They have a wide variety of books to choose from at the home, and obviously, high poverty kids typically tend not to have some of those things. And the major absence from the curriculum is a systemic phonics based program, which means that you're learning the sounds of letters and how to blend them together. You're learning them in a consistent and sequential way, and that curriculum doesn't have it. And
Wow.
the phonics instruction has proven to be very helpful, particularly to kids who have learning disabilities or who have dyslexia. But it's also shown to be a good way to teach, a wide variety of kids,
Yeah,
and they don't have that systemic and persistent quality to it in a lot of schools.
I think that the changing nature of the public school student, which includes now migrants, which includes many English as a second language learners, and so the way you just described it, it would make a ton of sense to have things that are phonically correct or phonically more general than as you said they expect you to come in with a certain proficiency that might not exist for any number of reasons for a number of the children who are in our schools. So this is really a grade school reading program. It sounds like
Yeah,
even
they're
way
they're
down at the bottom at the
yeah.
early childhood level.
They're focusing on grades K to 2. That's where you traditionally learn how to read,
Yeah, of
and
course.
the main thing is there's different ways that kids learn how to read. Some kids with a program, it's called units of study. Some kids actually do fine with it, but they find that the majority don't. And the story we revealed for the first time just how many schools were using it pre-pandemic. There's no updated numbers, but it was in close to half of the elementary schools that were surveyed. It was almost 300 schools.
I have some sympathy for the chancellor who recognized this and wants to change it and get that into all the schools and all the places where it's needed is not an easy thing to do. So let's hope he's successful. Last thing I
That's
just
right.
want to touch on, we've got about a minute and a half, is I remember during the Black Lives Matter protests and seeing in particular one in the South Bronx, and there just appeared to be, from the videos we saw, abuse by police officers. Now that disciplinary action is actually taking place.
Well, in terms of the court, yes, a judge recently looks like there was a decision or that they were essentially going to be paying protesters about $21,000 per person, depending on how many people are part of this class
Oh, I
action.
didn't realize that there was going to be a financial award. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe you're talking about the CCRB, the Civilian Complaint
Right.
Review Board. They have found quite a few cases of improper use of force by officers, particularly in that case. But I think that the majority so far of cases that have gone through the system and the commissioner has ruled on finally, you're not seeing very severe discipline, if at all, in a lot of those cases.
That's interesting. But the monetary award is at least an acknowledgement. It's not a ton of money, but at least it's an acknowledgement that maybe people were treated unfairly. Listen, Yoav Gonen, senior reporter for the city. Your input on our program and to the people of the Bronx is vital, and we appreciate what you do. We appreciate all our friends over at the city, and thanks for joining us this evening and helping us figure out what the heck is going on. But look at the range of stuff you cover, whether it be education, whether it be the toilets in the parks, and all that is important to our lives, and we appreciate your time this evening.
That's great. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we go back, we'll change gears and we'll talk about poetry. Don't go away.
Thank you so much.
Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
Let's start time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Faster dinner.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
All right, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We thank Yoav Gonen from the city for joining us. Switching gears as we do every week at this time, let's say good evening to Ana Selena, who is a writer, poet, and has a new book coming out. Nice
Yes,
to meet you. Nice to see you, Anna. How are
nice
you?
to
Everything
meet.
all right?
Yes, everything is great. Nice to meet you too, Gary.
And so you're excited. You have the book. Hold it up because
Yes.
it's not out quite just yet. It is Ana Selena,
Mm-hmm.
Memories Under
Under the
the
moon.
Moon. And this is your first book of poetry,
Yes, it's my first official self-published book very soon.
self-published.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Tell us about writing poetry. When did you start? Have you always wanted to? Was it one day you woke up and said, "Oh, I think I'm going to write," or did you go to school for it? Just a little background about you.
Honestly, I used to write a lot. I used to journal a lot when I was in high school. So that's where the inspiration came from. I was in a theater class in high school. So
A
I used to write
what class? What?
a theater class, so
A
like
theater
drama.
class. Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So my inspiration with writing came a lot from writing scripts and writing monologues. And then when I started getting into relationships, falling in love, I started
Oh, isn't
pouring
that
my
sweet?
heart out into writing. And so that's really where my poetry inspiration came from just experiencing different things.
You know, I always ask this question to people who
Hmm.
write about relationships, and I think about songwriters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. I'm older than you, so listened to the Beatles when I was younger,
Yeah.
and the intricacies of the relationships that they wrote about were startling.
Yeah.
Do you write about stuff only that you experienced, or do you see stuff and say, you know what, this is a story I can write? And in other words, are they all firsthand, or sometimes you say, well, I saw a friend has a relationship, and so I'm going to interpret it and view it in that way. Tell me
It's
about your
like my
philosophy, I
process.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, your
Uh,
process. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little bit mixed. So it's like some of them are definitely firsthand, but some of them I'm just like, I love analyzing things through like a different point of view. So like my friends would go through things and I'm just like, I feel like I can write about that. So I'll take a little bit of their experience, but without adding them into it because I want it to be like a little bit anonymous so I
Yeah,
don't put
a
them on
little
the
generic.
spot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But it's definitely mixed. It's both of them for sure.
That that's fascinating to me because um, the stuff that I've read that you've written is
Yeah.
very nuanced and shows a real depth of understanding of what relationships are and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. How prolific are you? Do you write every day? Do you write? Is it like Saturday morning is my writing time, or what do you do?
I normally so I journal every day. I
You
re
journal
sorry,
every day.
yeah, so I journal. So it's just like I try to get my intentions for the day, like to really set my mind. But because sometimes I feel very like lethargic, like very like apathetic sometimes, where I'm just like not in the mood to like write about like what I'm feeling all the time. But sometimes it's just
Wait,
like,
wait, can I just interject before
yeah,
that? Because that can be very challenging sometimes. I mean, I
yes,
know for myself, and I'm not writing poetry, it's
yeah,
like, it's enough already. I just wanna for me, I go and watch the ball game, or
yeah.
something like that. And so for you, even though you're committed to this, you do need to get away.
Yeah, I do need to get away. Like I love like sitting by the river, like watching the sunset to just sort of like recharge. So as soon as I
What a
feel like
romantic you are.
so as soon as I feel like, okay, like Anna, you can write about what you were feeling earlier, that's when I get in the mood. But I can't just like sit down and just like, okay, well, I felt this way about this person. It just has to like hit me in the moment, to be honest.
Mhm. These poems in Memories Under the Moon were written
Hmm.
since 19, excuse me, since 2017. No, not 19,
Yeah.
since 2017. Did you always say to yourself, maybe if I get enough of them, I'll make a book? Or did one day it occurred to you and you said, well, wait a minute, look, I got all this. This is a book.
Honestly, like I've written throughout the years, I've written like a lot of poems and I would share them with my friends. So mostly like the inspiration to put out a book came from my friends. I just thought, oh, I'll share my poems on like Instagram or like social media and stuff like that, just to have it within like a small community. But the inspiration to write a book really came from the creative side of some of my friends. They're like, you have to put this out, like
Oh,
more
wow. That's
people have
nice.
to, yeah, hear your words. So yeah, it
You
definitely
you
came from
have
them.
really good friends.
Yes, they're
No,
amazing, to be
clearly you do.
honest.
Listen, I'm just there was one poem that was shared with me, and we're gonna ask you
Yeah,
to read one, but I
okay.
just think, um, the way you see the world, the way you see people is just
Yeah.
so beautiful and so romantic.
Thank
The
you.
curves of her waist are a curated masterpiece. She has the power to play an instrument inside of you without ever playing a key. How beautiful, how wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
that would listen, then we could go through the whole thing that I have here. Why don't you
Yeah.
pick one out and read one,
Yeah.
right?
Of course,
Gary
yeah.
puts you on the spot. That's my job.
Gary has put me on the spot. I am ready when you are.
I'm ready. What is there a title to this, or do any of them
Yes.
have titles? Go ahead.
So yeah, I literally started titling them a few months ago before they had no title. But then I went through all of my poems, and I was just like, let me give them a title. So this one is called "What I Love About Her."
What I
Um,
love about her.
mhm. What I love about her. She loves to fly. I don't mean like airplanes. I mean like the way she finally realizes she is the pilot of her own story, jet setting and gliding to where her heart is most happy. This is clarity. A deep sigh high above the atmosphere where she burst alive. Her eyes are the front view window seat where her imagination takes her way into the clouds, cutting through where the sky blends with blues and purple swirls. She's everything I love when I think of flying. What I love about her. So yeah, that was a quick short one.
There you go. There you go.
Thank
This is
you.
Memories Under the Moon. Do you think of an audience when you write? I mean, let's put it this way: when I do my art, which is this, I always
Yeah.
think of the people who are watching, so that we deliver them something of entertaining or informational.
Yeah.
Do you think of an audience that
Yeah,
that you write for?
I do. I definitely do. I think about like people that are my age, people that
How
have like
okay? How old are you?
I'm sorry, I'm 26 years old. So
Okay,
people in my
I
20s.
could have guessed, but I didn't want to be rude.
No, it's totally okay. So I definitely think of people in like in their 20s. I think of people questioning their sexuality because that's something that like really empowered my poems as well, where I was like going through different relationships and I was kind of questioning my own sexuality in the point as well. I think about them as an audience, women, men, and people in their 20s, basically.
Well, and so, when you write something like what we just heard,
Yeah,
in a way, you're thinking of, people, uh, that you just described so that they
yeah,
can, do better in their relationships, et cetera, et cetera. You talked about poems, written, from 2017.
yeah,
Uh, all of that 6 years of work goes into this book. Are you
yeah.
gonna feel after the book comes out, are you gonna feel a little pressure to say, "Wow, now I gotta start again," and is it gonna take me 6 years to come up with in other words, the record album for musicians is all the stuff they've done their whole life, and then
Yeah.
the second album is the toughest. Do you think about that at all? Or
I
are you just a fountain and it keeps coming out?
honestly, I have been thinking about that because I'm like, okay, so this took 6 years to finally realize through the help of my friends that I should probably put out a little book and to put out another one, like a series, because the book is obviously called Memories Under the Moon. I'm very fond of like the different phases of the moon. But then I started thinking, what if I like make something like that's like under the sun or something, or like
It's
just
funny you would say that because I was just thinking, "Gee, what would be the next one?" The next one
exactly,
would be like
yeah.
a reality under the sun or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely a little bit of pressure because I'm just like, it's gonna be a lot of more poems that have to be
That that
created.
will
Mhm.
that will be an interesting thing because you'll have kind of a new concept, and then you're probably
Yeah,
gonna try to write for that concept to some
yeah,
degree, as
because
opposed to having all the stuff and then titling it after the fact.
exactly, yeah. Because
There you
within
go.
like the last 6 years, it's like I didn't really write those poems with the mindset that I'm gonna put out a book. I just wrote them. So now that this book is being gonna be put out in a few weeks, I'm just like, okay, now when I write more poems, I feel like I'm gonna have the mindset of like this is gonna be in the second poem book, but I'm
Right.
not really sure. Yeah.
Right. Did you study poetry in school? I mean, were you a
Never,
fan? Never did. So I
never
so I
did.
was
Yeah.
gonna ask you, like, was Edgar Allan Poe your favorite poet or anything like that?
I definitely read Edgar Allan Poe, but I never like, had to really study it from school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I look, now we're divulging, people who know me from
Mhm.
TV. I was an English major in college.
Really?
So that was I was not a media major or anything like that. So I spent a lot of time reading a lot of different poets and lot of different stuff. Never felt compelled to write a book of poetry.
Yeah.
Every now and then, and maybe I'll dash something out. Um, just back to the whole idea of muse.
Mhm.
Um, do you sit down quietly in the house and do it, or do you shut up, turn off the phone, and shut everything away, or like some people work best if they have the TV on or music on or something like that?
I definitely love to have a little ambiance, so, like, the lights have to be a little dim. I sometimes will have, like, a candle, like, near me.
Oh, so you're doing
Uh
memories under the moon. That's what we're
Literally, yeah.
gonna.
Like, sometimes I'll write them, like, in a notebook, but most of my poems, since I have my phone available always, like, it'll start off with an idea. So I'll start off with a line and, like, I'll write it in, like, my notes app on my phone. Thank goodness for the 21st century with technology. But yeah, I'll definitely write some of them in my notes and then I'll transfer it to a notebook. Like, it just feels so much more
And
natural just
and you
writing
you
it.
handwrite it?
Yeah, I handwrite it first
Oh,
because I
that
don't know,
that's
my thought
fascinating.
yeah, my thought process with
And
writing, like, it just I don't
wow.
know.
Well, I can understand that because that's the creative process. So
Yeah,
you handwrite them and then retype them. Do you
retype
find
them,
that
yeah.
you edit a lot when you finally, put them, digitally? You do?
Yes, I do, yeah. There are some times where I'm just like, I'll write certain phrases into, like, my journal, and I'm like, I don't really like the way that flows with the entire poem because sometimes I just, like, go on and on and on, and I'm just like, "Okay, no, I was just
Well, you
my
know
thought
what? We
process."
have that discussion with painters and artists all the time. How do you know you're
Yeah,
done? How do you know you're finished? You could just
yeah.
keep going. Listen, Anna, it's just an absolute joy to talk to you. When will the book be published, and when can we
Mhm.
see it? How what's
Yes.
next?
What's next? I officially decided on a date, so April 6th. Just
Okay.
because I wanted to be intentional with it. April 6th is our next full moon, I believe. Um,
Oh,
so
how
it's in
clever.
theme with the book. So I'll definitely publish it on April 6th. The book cover is completely different from what I showed you earlier. And the book is divided into the moon phases, so it's definitely going to be
Wow.
very meaningful and
What a
intentional.
listen, my applause. Listen, check out the Lit Bar in the South Bronx. They work with young writers, and I'm
Oh,
sure they would
nice.
love to. It's the only bookstore in the Bronx,
Yeah.
and the Lit Bar,
Lit
LIT,
bar.
Lit
Okay.
Bar, and I'm sure they'd love to have you. And if you've got a book of poetry like that,
Mhm.
I'm sure they'll work with you, and
Thank you
maybe
so
they'll make a
much.
little show out of it.
Oh.
Anyway, so the next poem she's going to write is the annoying talk show host. No,
No, I would
no.
never.
Anna Selena, thank you so much for joining us and brightening
Thank
up
you
our
so
day
much.
and our nighttime under the full moon. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Gary. It was
All
a
right.
pleasure.
That'll do it for the Bronx Buzz. We thank Yoav for the first segment, Anna for the second segment, and we'll be back next week. Now I'm all energized. Thank you to
Yes.
Anna for doing that. We'll see you next week. Good night.